If you were alone in a hotel room at 3 a.m. and someone whispered, "Don't open the door," would you listen? She did, and she was never seen again.
The Last Girl in Room 2805. Part 5. The Secret Visitor. At 3:17 a.m. A single footstep echoed in the hallway of the Maple Crest Hotel's 28th floor. A sound so faint, it almost didn't matter. Almost. 'Cause that footstep didn't belong to any registered guest. And it stopped exactly in front of room 2805. The last room where Mariah Hale was ever seen alive. Hotels are designed with safety in mind. Cameras, electronic keys, motion logs. But there's always a blind spot. And room 2805 had one. Just outside the room. The hotel's main hallway camera didn't cover the final 8 feet of the corridor. Perfect pocket of darkness. A perfect place for anyone to stand. Unseen. Someone knew this. Someone used this. At 3:18 a.m., the door to room 2805 registered a partial electronic disturbance. Not a full swipe. Not a guest key. But something brushed the lock. A metallic signal. Strong enough to trigger data. Weak enough not to open the door. Police would later call it a failed attempt at digital entry. But digital entry into what? And by who? Because no skeleton key was missing. No employee card was compromised. Yet someone tried to get into that room. At 4:06 a.m., a hotel guest on the 27th floor reported hearing a woman running upstairs. Crying or laughing. I couldn't tell. Minutes later, a figure is captured on an emergency stairwell camera. Woman. Wearing a dark green hoodie. Head down. Vest. She wasn't staying at the hotel. She wasn't visiting anyone. And she wasn't seen again on any other floor. Investigators didn't know her name. They still don't. But there was one detail. On slowed-down footage, her hands were shaking. As if she'd touched something she shouldn't have. Or seen something she couldn't understand. When hotel staff entered room 2805 at 5:28 a.m., they noted one thing. A faint chemical smell in the air. Dark, acidic, almost metallic. It wasn't bleach. It wasn't alcohol. It wasn't any cleaning agent the hotel used. A forensic technician later described it as a smell that doesn't belong in a hotel room. A smell associated with erasing fingerprints. On the desk, under a glass of untouched water, lay a single envelope. Hotel stationery. Blank. Unsealed. Inside, investigators found nothing. Completely empty. But the envelope had been folded twice. Exactly the way hotel staff fold envelopes before sliding documents inside. Which meant something was inside it. Something removed between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. What was taken? And why leave the envelope at all? Someone wanted the police to know a message existed. Someone wanted them to wonder what it said. Someone wanted the silence to speak louder than the truth. And it did. Because from part 6 onward, we shift from the room to the people circling around it. The ones who had something to hide, something to lose. And something to gain. The Last Girl in Room 2805. Part 6. The Circle of Suspects. Every mystery begins with a place. But every unsolved case ends with the people orbiting around it. Room 2805 wasn't just a crime scene. It was a magnet. And the people pulled toward it. Whether by chance, fear, or guilt, all had something to explain. His name was never released publicly. But investigators labeled him Person of Interest A. He told police he was asleep at his apartment across town. From midnight until 8 a.m. But his phone data disagreed. At 3:22 a.m. His phone pinged a tower 2 blocks from the Maple Crest Hotel. At 3:24 a.m. Another ping. Closer. Directly across the street. He said he never left his apartment. But his phone said otherwise. When confronted, he changed his story 3 times. First, I went for a walk. I drove past the hotel by accident. Finally, I don't remember where I was. And yet, no camera ever captured him entering the hotel. How does someone appear near a crime scene, but never on a single shot of surveillance? Unless they knew exactly where the cameras were. She was the last hotel employee to visit the 28th floor before Mariah vanished. Her shifts were always logged, always predictable. Except this night. At 2:43 a.m., her employee keycard triggered the stairwell door. 2 floors below room 2805. A route she never used. At 2:51 a.m., her keycard entered the 28th floor hallway. But then something strange happened. Her keycard activity, 8 hours of data, was manually deleted. Not by her. Not by security. By a system override. When questioned, she became quiet. Too quiet. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't react to the news. She only said one sentence. I never went to that floor. But the system logs, before deletion, prove she did. So why lie? One guest left the hotel earlier than anyone else. A man registered under the initials AH. He checked in with no luggage. Paid in cash. Stayed only one night. He requested no housekeeping, no wake-up call, no ID copy due to religious reasons. Security noted he had a calm, almost detached expression. At 5:40 a.m., while emergency crews were being called for room 2805, he quietly rolled a single black carry-on bag out of the lobby. The security camera caught only one thing. A slight smudge on the handle of his bag. Forensics later suggested it was residue. Chemical. Possibly the same odor found in room 2805. But the man. He was never found again. The address on his form didn't exist. He claimed he never saw Mariah after midnight. Claimed he never interacted with any unusual guests. But one detail stands out. At 2:07 a.m., he left the front desk for 11 minutes. Something he had never done before on any shift. When investigators asked why, he said, I went to get a soda from the staff fridge. But camera footage showed him walking toward the elevators, not the staff room. When he returned, his shirt sleeves were rolled up, and something small and metallic was tucked into his pocket. When asked for it, he said, I don't know what you're talking about. The object was never identified. Or found. For people. For stories that didn't match the truth. The ex-boyfriend. Who appeared where he shouldn't be. The housekeeper. Whose logs vanished. The mysterious early checkout. Who vanished himself. And the front desk clerk. With the 11-minute detour. But in the next part 7, the investigation moves from people to what they left behind. Open file folder the deleted logs. Open file folder the fingerprints that shouldn't exist. Open file folder the chemical traces. Open file folder the distorted audio recovered from Mariah's phone. Open file folder and the item found under the bed. 14 days later. What investigators uncovered next changed the direction of the entire case. And it began with something so small, so random, that it almost wasn't noticed. The Last Girl in Room 2805. Part 7. The Clues They Missed. If walls could speak, Room 2805 would whisper secrets. But rooms don't talk. Evidence does. And the evidence collected over the next 72 hours changed this case forever. Because the room wasn't done with investigators. Not even close. It still had something to reveal. Forensics started with the odor reported by hotel staff. The sharp, metallic scent lingering in the air. Testing revealed traces of dimethyl sulfone, a chemical rarely found in hotel environments. It appears after exposure to high heat, or after certain substances rapidly decompose. It is also used in cleanroom operations, to erase biological traces. Not fingerprints, not blood, DNA. Which raised one question. Who inside that room was trying to erase themselves? For 14 days the room sat sealed. Forensic quarantine. Then a technician noticed something. A faint dark smear. On the underside of the bed frame. Easy to miss. Impossible to ignore. When they swabbed it, the initial tests lit up. Not blood, not dirt, but a reactive chemical compound, matching the residue found on the man who checked out at 5:40 a.m. The man who paid in cash. The man with no ID. The man with the disappearing address. He had been inside room 2805. That was now certain. Mariah's phone was found on the dresser. Green up. Battery at 17%. But the lock screen showed no missed calls. No text. No alarms. It looked untouched. Except it wasn't. When digital forensics dug deeper, they found a corrupted audio file, recorded automatically by a voice memo app. At 3:23 a.m., exactly when the failed digital entry occurred at the door. The file was 11 seconds long. The first 6 seconds, static. The last 5 seconds, changed everything. The audio was enhanced 6 times. Filtered, denoised, isolated, soft thump, faint exhale, a metallic scrape, and then, voice, just one sentence, spoken clearly, will, close to the microphone. Don't open the door. Not Mariah's voice. Not a voice belonging to any identified guest. A stranger warning her. A stranger inside her room. Which rewrote the timeline entirely. Mariah wasn't alone. And she wasn't surprised. She was hiding. From someone already outside. There was one final detail investigators eventually admitted. A detail buried in supplemental reports. The door to room 2805 was not fully closed when staff found it. The lock had clicked, but not engaged, meaning someone pulled it shut from the inside, but didn't lock it. Someone walked out and expected to return. Someone left the room with unfinished business. And the audio from Mariah's phone suggests she wasn't fighting back yet. She was waiting, listening, terrified, and someone we haven't identified yet, was inside the room moments before she vanished. In Part 8, we uncover how investigators reconstructed her last known hour, minute by minute, footstep by footstep, and for the first time, pattern emerges, a pattern that points to the one person everyone overlooked. The last girl in room 2805. Part 8. The reconstructed hour. Investigators pieced together Mariah Hale's last hour. Every timestamp, every digital ping, every sound was accounted for, except 22 minutes. 22 minutes where no camera saw her. No phone pinged. No keycard activated. And yet, those 22 minutes held the answers. On the morning of day 4, a security sweep revealed something extraordinary. A small object jammed inside the hotel's laundry chute. Not garbage. Not clothing. It was Mariah's locket. Engraved initials inside a tiny photograph, the faint smell of the same chemical found in the room. The chute led to the service basement, far from guest areas. Someone had placed it there deliberately. Breadcrumb. A warning. Or a confession. Investigators revisited the elevator footage, the hallway cameras, and the stairwell. Frame by frame, the same anomaly appeared. Slight skips in the video distorted frames, tiny shadows moving where nothing should be. A pattern emerged. Someone had mastered camera manipulation. Not just accidental obstruction. Deliberate deletion. Time to the second. The missing 22 minutes weren't lost. They were stolen. By 3:45 a.m., evidence suggests Mariah left room 2805 voluntarily. Not fleeing in panic, not restrained. She moved quietly to the service corridor. At 3:52 a.m. she was spotted, or at least partially recorded, in the stairwell by a hidden maintenance camera. But at 3:53 a.m. the camera glitched. By 3:56 a.m. she vanished completely. Investigators realized something chilling. She wasn't kidnapped in the traditional sense. She was lured. By someone she trusted. Someone who knew exactly how to move without leaving a trace. Of all suspects, one's timeline didn't survive scrutiny. The man who checked out at 5:40 a.m. had a clean alibi until 3:40 a.m. But after forensic reconstruction, keycard signals elevator usage chemical residue in his bag placed him on the 28th floor at 3:43 a.m. Exactly when Mariah took her last step toward the service corridor. He had no record of entering the room, but evidence suggested he was inside. His story crumbled. His absence planned. And investigators suspected he wasn't working alone. By the end of the forensic reconstruction, room 2805 had spoken. Mariah Hale's last hour had been mapped. The breadcrumbs, chemicals, locket, and glitching cameras painted a story too calculated to be accidental. But one question remained. Who left the door ajar? Was it Mariah herself or someone else? And if someone else, why leave the room unlocked? While the person vanished into the night and never returned. In the final part, Part 9, we explore the unresolved theories, the chilling possibilities, and the legacy of room 2805's last girl. The last girl in room 2805. Part 9. The unsolved mystery. Room 2805 remains silent, but the echoes of its last visitor speak louder than any witness. The locket, the glitching cameras, the chemical residue, the door ajar, all point to one undeniable truth. Mariah Hale's disappearance was deliberate. Not random, not chaotic, calculated. Investigators left with three possibilities. 1. A professional abductor. Someone with expertise in surveillance, digital manipulation, and misdirection. 2. The insider. A hotel employee. Or someone close to the victims, who knew the blind spots and schedules. 3. The unknown conspiracy. The locket, the chemical, the glitches. Were they part of something larger? Something investigators never fully uncovered. No single theory explains it all. And that is what makes room 2805 so terrifying. Every piece of evidence leads to more questions. Why was the door left unlocked? Who called the anonymous tip line? And why did they vanish? Was the man who checked out at 5:40 a.m. alone or part of a team? And what happened during the missing 22 minutes? We may never know. Room 2805 keeps its secrets. And Mariah Hale remains the last girl. Some say the room chooses its next visitor. Some say it waits for someone to notice the symbols, the glitches, the warnings. And when you do, watches, room 2805 still waits. And no one can tell what will happen next. This was the last girl in room 2805. This is the Heavy Case Files Prime. Stay curious, stay awake, subscribe for the next investigation, coming soon.